See, I remember when I met you. It was like heaven and earth converged, with the sky losing grip of the stars whose light directed us through a path constructed by love, but designed by dreams. Ecstasy became the constant state of mind, being made consistent by the coexistence of me and you. So I desire to conspire with my willpower and your heart's deepest desires to bring forth the retiring of your resistance to pleasure. Because what I feel can only exist when we are together. So have no last kiss, just a kiss that lasts forever. Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani class whenever Africa. Happy Valentine's Day. We certainly hope that you are spreading all the love on this wonderful Friday. My name is Ashwin Berry. These are the stories that you can expect on Africa Good Morning. Tributes continue to pour in upon the passing of Namibia's founding president, Dr. Samuel Shafishuna Nujoma. Liberian president suspends hundreds of officials for failing to declare assets. African leaders advocate for slavery reparations despite facing resistance. And Namibia's central bank governor warns that escalating tensions between the US and South Africa could destabilize Namibia's economy. Follow all our programs on oneup2.com, DSTV 285, GoTV 25 in Namibia. Rorisang Mogojowe from Botswana will be bringing us the news stories to make sure that we stay updated on that part of Africa. This is Africa Good Morning. Don't forget, Network Media Hub on YouTube is also where you can find us. Top stories shortly.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
Let's get into our top stories. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has suspended more than 450 top government officials, including ministers, for failing to declare their assets to the anti-corruption agency. They will be off work without pay for a month or until they submit the required declarations, according to the presidency. Boakai said that the officials had contravened the code of conduct for state officials by not being transparent about what they own. The president, who had pledged to fight corruption when he came into office last year, said failure to comply undermined efforts to combat corruption and ensure accountability. Among those suspended include the ministers for education and health, as well as the special envoys for tourism and investment. They also include officials working for the executive mansion, the official residence of the president, and country administrative officials. This law requires all public officers to declare their wealth before taking up their posts and when they leave positions in government. The Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission published the list of all the 457 affected public officials, noting it was doing so as prescribed by law. Moving on to our next story. African leaders meeting in Ethiopia this weekend are to launch a new push for slavery and colonial reparations, but can expect to be stonewalled by former colonial powers, most of which have ruled out making amends for historical wrongs. While the issue of reparations has gained momentum worldwide, so has the backlash. US President Donald Trump has said he doesn't see it happening, and many of Europe's leaders have opposed even talking about it. At the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, leaders plan to shape a unified vision of what reparations may look like, from financial compensation and formal acknowledgement of past wrongs to policy reforms. Reparations is the hot topic in Addis Ababa, the AU's Economic, Social and Cultural Council, ECOSOC, wrote on X. From the 15th to the 19th century, at least 12.5 million Africans were kidnapped, forcibly transported by mostly European merchants, and sold into slavery. We swing back down to Namibia. As tributes continue to pour in following the passing of Namibia's founding president, Dr. Sam Nujoma, we now hear from Dr. Martha Umati, board chairperson of Namdeb Private Limited and director of Namdeb Holdings. She reflects on the profound impact Dr. Nujoma had on her life and his visionary role in shaping Namibia's fishing industry. Join us as she shares her thoughts on the legacy of a leader who helped define the nation.
The leadership as well as his legacy, that is really what is truly immortal. And that will forever resonate with us as Namibia and as a nation. On personal reflections and memories, for me, Founding Father was more than just a national leader. He was a guiding light, a source of wisdom, a true patriot, a visionary, and my childhood hero. I vividly remember one of my earliest impressions of him, the moment he returned from exile, and how he, with overwhelming emotions, actually kissed the soil of Namibia. And that was like a true son of this land. That powerful gesture, spoke volumes. It spoke of his passion and love for our country and his determination, their determination to see the liberation struggle through to victory. I also recall the cherished memories of when he would visit my grandmother. Although I didn't have a one-on-one conversation with him then as a child, and I believe it was more because both of them were so absorbed in reconnecting with the past. But what I always remember is his presence. His presence left a lasting mark on me, and that served as a personal reminder of the sacrifices that were made during our struggle. On his impact on the fishing industry, I would say Founding Father's influence extended to shaping policies and reforms that actually transformed our nation, especially the fishing sector. As the Founding Father, his leadership ushered in vital policy reforms, economic strategies, and those resource localization initiatives that ensure that we as Namibians that we actually benefit from our natural wealth. What always stood out for me and will continue to stand out for me is his strong advocacy for sustainable utilization of marine and coastal resources for the benefit of current and future generations. And clearly there was political will and motivation, and that really resulted in Namibia being recognized as one of the countries with the best fisheries management practices. Under his guidance, investments in the fisheries industry was promoted. We've seen the paving of Namibians now owning fishing rights and actively participating in the fishing sector, in this critical sector. That is his legacy. Also, as part of his legacy is that he ensured that we are and we become custodians of our own resources. I myself is a proud beneficiary of the educational initiatives he championed, being part of the first group of UNAM graduates in natural resources, and later I furthered my studies through collaborations with international partners like Norway and UK. This has really shown me firsthand Founding Father's dedication to nurturing local expertise, especially in the fishing sector, in the mining sector, and all other sectors, in agriculture, and it extends to all other economic important sectors of our country. In terms of his legacy, what I wish to build on, I would say it's one of the inclusivity, robust governance, and a relentless commitment to putting Namibia first. Founding Father's life and that of our late President, Dr. Hage Geingob, as well as my grandmother, reminds me that the And it should remind us all, actually, that the liberation struggle was not in vain. Just as David once proclaimed in 1 Samuel 17:29, when he was at the battlefield, he asked the question, is there a cause? So for me, there was a cause for our liberation struggle. And now really, our cause is economic emancipation. This is the challenge we face today. And I pray that collectively we can fulfill this purpose for our generations and future generations. Founding Fathers' immortal legacy it will not just be found in history books or in history, but in every policy. He influenced every initiative he championed, and in the hearts of all Namibians, all of us who continue to strive for a better self-determined nation. May his soul rest in power and internal peace. To his family, the Sam Nujoma Foundation, and the entire Namibian nation, may God comfort, keep and sustain us all during this time. Let us honor his memory by carrying forward his vision and commitment to a united and prosperous Namibia.
Visit samnujoma.my.na to view and share your tributes to the late founding president of Namibia. After the break, we'll be talking to Rorisang Mogojowe as she brings us the news stories from Botswana. Now in Botswana, the Minister for State, President Mohwasa, addresses missing persons concerns, blaming youth disappearances on lack of communication. Opposition leader Salishando calls for GBV to be declared a national crisis amid rising violence against women and children. And Ngami district grapples with deadly wildlife attacks, 14 killed or injured in 5 years. Here's Rorisang Mogojowe in Botswana with those updates.
Africa, good morning. Thank you very much for having me. The first story, the Minister for State, President Mohwasa, has downplayed concerns over the rising number of missing persons cases, attributing most of these cases to just young people leaving home without informing their parents or guardians or families or loved ones. He was addressing the media as well as the public on the situation of crime in the country, and while he did acknowledge the fact that there are challenges in the country regarding crime, including murder, rape, as well as missing persons cases, he also argued that the situation is not as alarming as most people believe that it is. And when he was giving statistics, he noted that during the month of January this year, between the 1st and the 31st, 87 cases of missing persons were recorded, which was a decrease or a decline from the 160 that were recorded during the same period last year in 2024. He suggested that many of these cases involved teenagers who disappeared for short periods and often stayed with friends without informing their parents, their guardians, their families, or their loved ones of their whereabouts. And while he dismissed this issue as just youthful mischief, he did acknowledge the fact that some of these cases are actually serious and they do warrant concern because some persons remain missing under mysterious circumstances, and the police are continuing to investigate and to deal with these cases. And then the second story, the leader of opposition in parliament, who's also the president of the Botswana Congress Party, has called on the government to declare gender-based violence a national crisis due to the rise or the increasing incidents that are being reported in the country. He warned that violence against women and children, who are the most affected, would make Botswana or define Botswana as a nation of intolerance and violence. He was saying this in response to the budget speech that was presented on Monday by the Minister of Finance, who's also the Vice President, who presented his budget speech on Monday. And Salashando criticized the current administration or the current government for downplaying. He accused it for downplaying the gender-based violence situation in Botswana. He also called for urgent and collective response as well as intervention, urging both sides of parliament, both the opposition and the ruling sides of parliament, to unite in adopting what he says is a well-funded long-term strategy to combat GBV. Now, according to police statistics, 100 women were raped and 10 murdered during the late December festive period, which shows an increase. And according to the police commissioner, 10 out of the 25 murders that were recorded in December, or rather between December 19th and January the 2nd, were related to gender-based violence. During the same period, 93 rapes were reported, and of all these reported crimes, 61% were related to gender-based violence, which really shows that there is a trend, an upward trend in the gender-based violence situation in the country, and therefore the government has been called on to urgently declare GBV as a national crisis in the country. Now, we know that the government has introduced some measures, including special costs that are dedicated to dealing with such cases of GBV, as well as the establishment of a sex offender registry. However, this violence continues, hence the repeated calls to declare gender-based violence a national crisis. And then lastly, the third story, 14 people have been killed or injured in attacks by dangerous wild animals in the northwestern part of the country in Ngamiland over the past 5 years. These statistics were revealed by the Minister of Environment and Tourism, Honorable Winter Muluzi, who disclosed that 7 people lost their lives while 7 others sustained injuries due to human-wildlife conflict in the area, which is also a cause for concern. Many people have been calling for government to erect buffalo fences or cordon fences that would then separate the human beings from the wildlife, because there is a concern of coexistence between the humans and the wildlife that are in the region, in the northwest part of the country. To support families, the affected families, the ministry has provided 50,000 pula, which is about $3,600 in compensation to each bereaved family, as well as covering 20,000 pula, or about $1,500 in funeral expenses. Those injured have received medical care with transport assistance offered where necessary. Now, the minister also stated that the Department of Wildlife and National Parks has intensified patrols as well as awareness campaigns in order to mitigate the human-wildlife conflict in the region. Now, that's all that I have for you this morning. Thank you very much for having me, Africa. Good morning.
In economic news, Namibia's central bank governor has cautioned that rising tensions between the U.S. and South Africa could have a destabilizing effect on Namibia's economy. He highlighted the nation's strong economic ties with both countries and the vulnerability of the Namibian dollar, which is pegged to the South African rand, Bloomberg reported. On February 7, President Donald Trump issued an executive order freezing all U.S. aid to South Africa, citing alleged human rights violations linked to the country's new land expropriation law. He also pointed to South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice, where it accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, claims that have been widely disputed. Now, Namibia is closely monitoring the impact of the escalating U.S.-South Africa dispute. Central Bank Governor Johannes Klaverhab said, "Our currency is pegged to the South African rand, so any impact on the rand will directly affect us," the governor also said. This is Africa Good Morning. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning throughout the broadcast. These are some of the highlights. Trump's dispute with South Africa spells trouble for Namibia's economy. Liberian president suspends hundreds of officials over asset declaration failure. And African leaders push for slavery reparations despite resistance. And of course, it is Valentine's Day. We certainly hope that you are spending your day surrounded and sharing love. DSTV 285, GoTV 25, 1up2.com, and Network Media Hub on YouTube is precisely where you can find us. From me, Ashwin Bedi, and the Africa Good Morning team, Suraj Kanaka.